Joining us from far away, or at least via Zoom, is Dr. Michael Gervais to hopefully make us feel a little bit better. Dr. Gervais is a high-performance psychologist who works with some of the country's top athletes and business leaders. He hosts a podcast about it all called Finding Mastery. He's partnered with Seattle Seahawks coach Pete Carroll on a company called Compete to Create. He served as a mental health coach for the Seahawks as well. Dr. Gervais, welcome to The Issue Is for the first time. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
And hopefully one day you won't be so far away, but I think we all are adjusting to this new reality. I think so many people in this country are feeling anxious, they're fearing fear, they're fearing confused. Help us feel a little bit better. I mean, what are some of the tips you've learned on how to deal with those emotions and that anxiety?
We're in an unprecedented time right now, and we are feeling the effects of chronic stress. And there are no tips or tricks or shortcuts to dealing with stress, but there are time-tested and research-based and evidence-based strategies to be able to downregulate, to manage the stress that we're feeling. So I'd like to talk about a couple tools, if that's okay.
Go ahead. What are they?
Okay, so the first is there's two fronts to being able to work with this stress. The first is awareness. And without awareness, we really don't know what tool to use. So awareness of what? Awareness of the way our body feels. And under stress, there's a very predictable thing that takes place that we all know what it feels like. There's a constriction somewhere in our body. There's a tightness in our breathing. There's a tightness in our chest or neck or jaw. And so if we can feel our body and where we feel the stress, then the response is deep breathing. And as mechanical as that sounds, as simple as that sounds, a long exhale sends a very strong signal to the brain. A very ancient part of the human experience is our brain, to calm down, to relax, we're safe. And what happens under chronic stress is that we're worrying about later, and we're trying to solve for later, the what ifs that are coming down the line, and how one might adjust to the unprecedented uncertainty that we're in. So when our mind goes way out to try to solve, then sometimes what we need to do is just say, wait a minute, hold on, come back. This is with great awareness. Come back to what can I do today? And if that feels too big, what can I do this hour? And if that feels too big, what can I do this moment to adjust? And sometimes it's a breath, and sometimes, or many breaths, and sometimes it's simple as changing the thought pattern.
You know, a lot of times when you have crises, we're told to come together. This is one crisis where we're actually being told to come apart and to be separate in your homes, which is unusual for people. Human beings like to be connected to one another. There are a lot of people that are feeling bored, that are feeling lonely, that are feeling uncomfortable being at home right now. What's your advice to them?
There's two things that are taking place. One is there's the normal kind of internal scratchiness that comes with doing something new that's a bit unsettling. And then there's a second, more serious thing that's taking place is for some people, their underlying mental health, this is exasperating it. And it's amplifying the sense of loneliness or isolation, depression, or real anxiety. And so for folks that are struggling in one frame or the other, one of the great reminders is that this war is fought on two fronts. One is on the front line with keeping your hands clean and keeping distance. And the second is it's fought internally. And it's a function of our immune system. And immunity and social belonging are tightly linked. And so being with other people helps our immune system, but we don't get access to that right now. So we need to use our technology to be able to make sure that we are staying in touch with people that we love and we care, check in on them, offer them words of encouragement, say the things that you normally haven't said to them because of the pace and the rhythm of modern life. And so what I'm doing is I'm just taking a moment and I'm writing down the things that I want to say to people. And I'm calling them. I'm just checking off the list. I'm texting them and just watering the relationship in a new way, in a different way.
A lot of what people look forward to in life has been taken away. We're talking about like weddings, movies, sporting events, a lot of the great joys in life. And people now have sort of an indefinite calendar of nothing. How do we adjust to that?
This is going to be challenging. And so there's a moment for us to say, okay, what's really important in my life? And the two most precious commodities we have, they're not commodities, but the two most precious experiences are time and relationships. And while we are being stripped of traditional coping mechanisms like going to movies and going to sport events or even watching sports right now, is the opportunities to come back and say, okay, who am I? And reinvest in the people that you're with. Who are they? And deepen the relationships. And I'll tell you that challenge is real and it's hard. And it requires vulnerability, it requires intimacy. And when you lock in on those two, it's also risky. And when our brains and our bodies are in moments of risk, we light up. Our brain loves novelty and newness. And so there is some stimulation that's right around the corner if you take that next step to get to know yourself and your people a little bit better.
Yeah, I guess one of the challenges would be if you find out who am I and then you don't like that person, but that's a whole other segment, I guess. Let's talk for a moment also about schools and kids. We've got this new family dynamic where kids are home all day. Parents are now with their kids all day. That would create anxiety anyways. What's your advice to parents? What's your advice to kids in this new world?
Well, I think that each family is uniquely on their own journey, and we all have different resources, both internal and external. And this new adjustment period is going to cause high stress for some, and for some, they're going to take it in stride. One way to take it more in stride is to talk about the conditions that you're under. And here's a great, very applied thing that we can all do is create a scale. And that scale is, let's say, 1 to 100. And 100 is I have 100% resources to be here in this challenge. And let's say a 50 is like, hey, I didn't get a good night's sleep. I'm really cranky. I'm struggling. And let's say and everyone has their own scale. And every morning you wake up and you say, what number are you at? And that just helps to calibrate where people are. And with that very simple, practical tool, you can say, okay, if I'm at a 75 and my partner or my child is at a 30 or something less than 75, then okay, I know I got to pick up some pieces here, and vice versa. And so it's a nice little calibration tool, both to take an internal inventory and then taking inventory of the resources of the people in your family.
One thing that everybody that's been on this show today has talked about is how this will change us going forward. What do you think are sort of the long-term repercussions of this moment? And maybe is there some silver lining?
Well, one is I think we're realizing that prior to this moment, the level of stress that we live with is high. And people are walking around with full cups. Their cup is full. And if the liquid in the cup is stress, chronic stress was already high. Now with this new change, the cup is spilling over. So I think this is a moment of time to say, how are we going to be able to manage chronic stress? It's not complicated. It is investment in recovery. And on the world stage of athletics, everybody's working hard. Everyone is running towards stress to get better. And they're spending deep time, committed time to recover. And there's 5 basic pillars of recovery: sleep well, eat and hydrate well, move well, think well, which is about optimism, and then laugh well. And that's the social component. With those 5, we have the mechanisms to manage stress. And so right now is a moment in time to say, let me connect to people and let me empty my cup so I can be more available during high stress moments for other people.
Well, Dr. Michael Gervais, my cup is empty. I cheers to you with my empty cup. I am taking a deep breath. I actually do feel better about that. And I do feel better after talking with you. I think this is probably the most important conversation we've had all week. Thank you so much for all that you do. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And again, that is Compete to Create, where you can find out more of the tips. You can also download the Finding Mastery podcast and find out more from him as well.